Hello, I'm back. Um, I have promised you a few days ago that I'm going to share with you a very simple scheme of work for the trainees, people who are training to be teachers, and for the newly qualified teachers. So I've done my best to dig out one of my very simple schemes of work just to start you with. Okay, so just bear with me a second. I'm going to share it with you, and I hope it is helpful. Okay, right. What I do want you to do is to take screenshot of every single page, because I am not sure how to share the document with you. So if you can bear with me, please, and you just take screenshots for every paper. Okay, so to begin with, just a simple explanation. A scheme of work is a working document that you prepare before you enter the classroom. So you have in mind what, obviously, you would have had your timetable and the groups you're going to teach and the levels, what levels and what category of learners you're going to teach. So a scheme of work is a working document that most people in the United Kingdom prepare it for a term. And I'll tell you, go into that details later to explain to you why it's in term and not in a whole year, like I have experienced it in when I observed people in other countries. Okay, so let's just bear in mind that it is a working document. It's a paper that I need to prepare to see ahead what my learners are going to learn for this academic term. Okay, you can call it academic year if you're planning to prepare a scheme of work for a whole year. I personally cannot do that. Okay, so I've got here a termly scheme of work. So my scheme of work is this. So this is the first page. Please do take a screenshot because I am not going to share it. I don't know how to share it. Okay. So on the first paper, on the first page, you write your course name and the course code, if you have any. The start date, for example, the 1st of September or, the 2nd of January. The day, is it a Monday or probably Monday and Tuesday? And the time of the session from to. And what level is this class? So here is an example of an entry 2. Okay, the number of the sessions for the term or for the year, the location, which university, which area, what college, which school, and obviously you. Now I have divided the course into 2 categories. The first one is the course aim, or aims if you've got more than one, and you should, and the course goals. What do you want your learners to achieve? Okay, so I'm going to read the first page for you because I need to explain a few things. So for your course aim, my first aim here for this particular course, I think it was about a year ago, to support learners to be confident enough to be engaged in conversation. So clearly, this is a speaking and listening course, and be provided with the necessary support to improve their communication skills. So this is a speaking and listening class, a speaking and listening scheme of work. This needs to be changed if you are doing a reading or writing or any other subjects you're doing. Okay. Aim number 2 is to work towards an entry 2 standard in all skills, but mainly you focus on the speaking and listening. I mean, you cannot teach, or the learners cannot practice the speaking and listening without reading a document, a text, a paragraph, a dialogue, or a conversation, and without writing as well. Okay. The third aim is to work on improving communication, grammatically correct, but don't focus too much on that because that will put the learners off, and use correct and specific vocabulary in order to manage a decent conversation in accordance to the current entry level and possibly above. The last aim is to promote English as a cultural and social practice. Okay, so you're not just talking about a conversation in English, but it's a conversation. Where did it take place? So do teach the learners, your students, about life in the UK. Okay, so it's not just English as pure English or academic English, but actually the social. You have to embed the social and the cultural English in your lessons. All right. Now we move on to the course goals or the outcomes. What do you want your learners to achieve at the end of each session or at the end of the course? So for me, this was mainly to do with psychology. So you can, again, adapt it according to your learners' needs, according to the module you're teaching, according to the course you're delivering. So for me, the first outcome that I was hoping to achieve was to be able to learn new vocabulary and recognize vocabulary learned previously and use them correctly in speaking. Now, you notice that I've highlighted this in red because it has got a bit of a special characteristics for me and for my students. Like I said, this was mainly linked to psychology module. So promoting knowledge in group discussion related to current issues. In this world, we've got a lot of issues, okay? And in some countries, they want to deny, or, you know, they opt to deny the issues. No, I don't deny any issues. We all live these issues. We see them, we hear about them on the news, and most learners are, you know, they either don't talk about them because it's not allowed, or they don't have the necessary the equipment, the vocabulary equipment to talk about them. Well, we're here to help them. So, such as mental issues, mental health, safeguarding, and sexual abuse, harassment, and grooming in children's lives, and equally in the lives of adults. Okay, so you are helping them to practice expressing their opinions, verbally answer questions according to texts, information at an entry 2 standard. Well, this was my class, but you can always change it according to the entry of your class. What we mean by the entry is actually the level, it's there. Use formal language when responding to queries, but in future lessons, we will see that informal language is also necessary. Learn formal vocabulary and the ability to develop it into formal sentences. So you start in with words and you develop and progress these words into sentences. Okay, especially in the need of reporting incidents through phone calls. Okay, so please do take a screenshot of this first page. Now, by the way, all these aims here and outcomes, you're going to develop them later in the same scheme of work. Okay, so I hope you have taken the screenshot. All right, let's move on to the second page. Now, the second page is, you just design it the same as this, or change it according to your own design, or minimize it. It's all up to you and according to your own means and your own resources. So, for example, where I work, there are different ways of, using resources in teaching, but you don't have to tick each box because it's impossible to use all of them, okay? So, for example, for this scheme of work, I used the interactive whiteboard because I needed to use some websites, I needed to use some videos and the TV. Presentation was very necessary because the course was mainly speaking and listening. I've given them assignments as homework. We deal with questions and answers, self-assessment for the learners, and peer assessment. They assess each other, where you just step back and let them do the work. It's actually a good practice. You don't want to the lesson to be teacher-centered. Most of the time it is student-centered. Okay, so do please take a screenshot of this, and like I said, you can just, you know, change it into any way that fits the purpose of your teaching and learning. Okay, just give you a few seconds. All right. Okay, so I'm moving now to the second part, which is something as a must in the United Kingdom. Do excuse me for mentioning other countries. That's my ignorance, because I'm not aware, apart from certain European countries that I have visited and worked with. I'm not sure what's happening in Algeria and Morocco and Tunisia, for example. Okay, so you do need to write, just in case of the inspection, and also for yourself, the evaluation methods. How are you going to assess? And when I say assess, I don't mean only the exams. The assessment takes place all the time, okay? Or the feedback takes place all the time in your lesson. So how do I make sure that my learners have understood? How do I understand? How do I know that they understand what I'm saying? So the first step, or the easy step, is through questions and answers, Q&A, questions and answers. Observation. When they are working in pairs, you're observing them. Let them make mistakes, okay? But you are observing them, because those mistakes, you can give it to them or rectify them in feedback. Give them homework and mark it. Don't do like me. Most of the time I don't mark it. Very bad. And then if your class is taking an exam, that's another matter. So you are working for the exam because you want them to pass. Okay, right. The second category in this page is health and safety inside the class and in the communal area where people take a break. Okay, so you know, you can read it here. I'm only going to read what I believe is very, very important. For example, equality and diversity. As you know, that the United Kingdom is a place for different races, different religions, different opinions, and people are all, you know, sort of diverse from different backgrounds. So we do have to be very careful in embedding equality and diversity within the teaching establishment. Okay. IT, technology. So it's, as we know, it's no longer chalk and blackboard or green board, or it is a whiteboard and smart board now. So write them if you use them. This is very important to me because whenever I observe teachers, they say, well, I was with this particular teacher and she said, I said, do you embed maths? But after observing the lesson, and she said, no, I don't like maths. I'm not a maths teacher. I'm an English teacher and I hate maths. I said, well, you just did. She said, how? I didn't. I said, yes, you did. So embedding maths in English. When you group your learners and you put them into small groups and you say, okay, I need 4 people here, group A, and 4 people in group B. You have embedded maths because you mentioned the numbers. When you say first, second, third, fourth, and you have embedded maths because you have mentioned numbers. When you teach days of the week, when you teach salaries, when you teach prices, when you teach kilometers or distance, you are embedding maths. So you are embedding maths. Okay, please do take a screenshot. Okay. Right. Okay. This is important, differentiation. So we don't have, when we start a class, you assume that learners' abilities are not the same, and indeed they are not the same. But you only know that after meeting the learners, probably in week 2. That's the reason why I didn't write much here. The only thing I wrote is work at entry 2 and above, because then I didn't meet the learners yet. So once you meet the learners, your vision is clarified, so you know who needs what, and that's the differentiation. Yeah, you prepare your lesson, but prepare differentiation in your lesson, within the lesson, because learner A understands it in a different way from learner B. Okay, the next step, please do take screenshots. You can add additional information. So basically you can just add 2, 3 things to one thing. Don't add anything at all if you think that there is no need to add anything, but for me there is always a need to add something. So I'm just going to go through what additional information I have included here, and again, it's up to you to, or it's up to you and according to your learners' needs. You can add different additional information. Learners who attended the reading course in term 1 to welcome new learners who have joined the S/L speaking and listening class this term and work as a team. So you see why it is important to me. Ready for the lesson on time. So you just set your grounds. If the lesson starts at 9 o'clock, you want everybody to be there at 9 o'clock. To establish that learners who might be late to email the teacher stating the reasons regarding their lateness. And the last one is very, very important, equally for the teacher and the learners. I used to do this very frequently. All learners will start the lesson with a positive thought. It's just the idea of starting the lesson with a positive thought. You know, it just brightens the day for you as a teacher and for the learners. I mean, we used to, you know, to say things like, oh, yesterday I cooked a good meal, a wonderful meal. Oh, what did you cook? And then we just start a very simple 5 minutes conversation about that. So that just gives the teacher a desire to teach his class or her class in a positive way, and it just prompts the learners to do well in that session. Yeah, you can start a positive conversation, just for example, a good wish. Most people used to say, oh, you know, I wish that my children pass their exam because it's June and they're going to do the exam, and I wish my friend you know, arrive safely to her country and things. It could be anything, really anything. Don't restrict them, say this and say that. No, just give them the freedom to say whatever they want to say. If something makes them feel happy, just let it be, let them say it. Okay. A good plan for the week, next week. Oh yeah, I've planned to go to the cinema. I think I'm just meeting my friend in the cafe, in the, you know, in a cafe or in the park, or I'm going to do some shopping. I had a lot of this. I'm going to do the shopping. And my answer was, oh my God, so you're rich. You've got a lot of money. I want you to change this next. Give me another plan next week. So, you know, just things and joke with them. Joke with them as well. Don't make them feel like there is that kind of not a relationship. I'm a teacher and you are the learners. Yeah, I'm your teacher and you're my learners. You know, we're working together. We are, go from the idea that we are working together. Do you know, I've learned a lot from my students over the years and years, I have learned a lot from my students. And because of them, I'm doing my research on my PhD now. You know, if I didn't meet them, I wouldn't be able to do it. I haven't done it yet. I'm only in year 1. Okay. They could talk about a change in lifestyle, diet, for example, learning, getting better in English, in cooking, in organizing their homes, in talking to other people, in using idiomatic expressions, in wearing makeup, just things like very simple like that. Life is very simple. Okay, I hope you have taken a screenshot. All right. Now, I'm only going to introduce 2 pages of the essence of the scheme of work now. Excuse me. And please do take a screenshot. So, literally, what we have seen in the course goals and the outcomes is all done here in a very explicit way. Okay? I'm going to put it in a very simple way for the newly qualified teachers. Sessions and dates. That's what you're going to put here. W stands for week. So week 1, whether you've got 1 session or 2 sessions or even 3 in week 1. Okay, so you can see that it is a little bit out of date. That was last year. The content or the topic, right? When I know it's very, very important, or I know that some teacher would struggle with it. The learning objectives. Do you remember the learning, the aims? And the outcomes? By the end of the lesson, by the end of the session, students will be able to what? Finding ways to keep our class going, to discuss learners' abilities and needs. Okay? How are you going to assess that? How do you know? How do you know that by the end of the lesson, your students, your learners have achieved what you wanted them to achieve? You're going to ask them questions and you get the answers. You're going to listen to them. And then if they ask you questions, you're going to respond. And because I didn't put much here, you can see the difference between these 2, because that was the first week. Okay. I haven't used any resources. It was the first week, just the contact time, the assessment methods, questions and answers, completed exercises, because I dealt with induction. Okay. And for people who needed more time within this week, I sent them the induction by email. Now, just let me just go back a step. So you need to take, if you're dealing with adults, you need to exchange emails so you can correspond. But if they are teenagers, make sure you take the consent of the parents. Okay, right. So that's your week 1. But again, this is my induction for week 1. And you do it according to your country's procedures and strategies. And I actually consider that this is my first lesson. Okay, so in this first lesson, you can see that it is filled more than the first week. Once I have established everything in week 1, I would then be able to write something on differentiation, because that was a whole week meeting the learners, so I would know who needs what. Okay, so please do take a screenshot. I feel so embarrassed. I don't know how to upload this. It's just because this YouTube is something very new to me. I've only done it because of a request from different teachers I worked with. Okay, so if I move to the second page, and you can see the process and the development of my scheme of work. So these are the resources that helped me build my lesson. Yeah, all of them. Okay, so we dealt with mental health issues. So that's the theme, and I divided it into small lessons. So for example, in week 1, I think this lesson of depression was divided into 2 sessions, or was done over 2 sessions. Then in week 4, we worked on the theme of autism. Okay. Right, yeah, so that's week 4. And week 5, still under mental health issues, and we discussed fear. That was a beautiful lesson. It promoted a big discussion. Week 6, we discussed sexual abuse and harassment. You will be surprised if you deal with this lesson. We think people don't talk, but actually if they trust you and you build that bond of we working together, not the bond of, because there will be no bond if you say, I'm the teacher, you're the student, you're learning from me. No, we're learning from each other. Go with this idea to your classroom. We're learning from each other. Okay. I am hoping that you are taking screenshots. Okay, so that's week 6. Okay, so you can see here, because it was only a week for half term, the learners had a break. I don't, they do. So I used this week to revisit parts of previous topics, so you can do it as study skills for your learners. Okay, you know, just to visit what you have worked on, worked with, and dealt with previously. Okay, you don't need to start a new lesson. And it's always good to check their understanding. Okay, then they had a break. So that's week 7. Week 8, because that particular group where the students were going to do an exam, so we had to do our first mock exam, something similar to the exam, just to see if they were able to take the exam at the end of the term. And just make sure that when you do this trial session of an exam, you give them feedback, you mark it, and you give them the feedback. Okay, then we, so we're still doing the mental health issues. So in this lesson, we dealt with health and well-being. It was a beautiful lesson, this one. Okay, which was divided into 2 sections, mental health activities to stimulate the brain, and the physical activity, walking in company, for example, cardiovascular activity and stuff like that. Anyway, you know, you can change everything here. This is just a guide for you to know and understand what a scheme of work is, and to actually go into your classrooms or start your term feeling confident that you've got what it takes to teach. Okay. Then we went to something completely different in week 10, the benefits of good nutrition. And you can see grammar is embedded there. Please do take a screenshot. Okay, so I didn't think that the first mock exam was enough for my learners. So I had to do a second one before the final stage, before taking the exam. So I wasn't really sure that everybody is going to enter an exam and pass it, because the criteria for this particular group of psychology, I had to prove that they worked really well and they passed the exam. So I did a second mock exam, but you can do that anyway. And obviously I've given them feedback for them to rectify their errors. And so that was week 12. And in that was week 11. And week 12, they were ready for the exam. There is always one or two learners who actually fail. Oh no, I hate the word fail, who just don't pass the exam. It's just an exam. But then make sure that you allow more time for revision and for them to resit the exam. Okay. Okay, so you can see that my scheme of work is not a yearly scheme of work. It's a term scheme of work. What month is that? That's March. So it brought me down to Easter. So from January till March. Yes, simply because when I designed this scheme of work, or all my schemes of work, I could not possibly think beyond a term. I mean, for me, it's just impossible. And if you do that, you make mistakes. And if you do that, you're going to change. I mean, this scheme of work, it's a termly one, and it is subject to annotation. You need to change it. You need to change some lessons, because something works and some other things don't work. So if it doesn't work, just annotate it and write on top of it, it didn't work today, so I'm substituting this subject with something else. Okay, I hope this is helpful, and thank you very much for being here with me. And if you've got any other ideas that can help me and you, please do share them in your comments. And they're all welcome, all ideas. There isn't an idea which is bad. All ideas are good. So we look at them and we work on them. Okay, so today I have shared with you the scheme of work in a very simple way, I hope. And the next session we'll be sharing a lesson plan. Okay, so this is the end of my work with you, and I hope to see you again. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.